I am getting closer to 40, and honestly, that is a strange sentence to say out loud. It feels a little scary, not because 40 is old, but because it makes you stop and look at your life differently. You start asking yourself if the money decisions you made were actually building something meaningful, or if you were just moving from one year to the next without a clear direction. Over the years, I have made videos about money milestones people should try to hit in their 20s and 30s. But this video is going to be a little different. This is not just a general list of financial goals. These are the money milestones I personally want to accomplish before I turn 40. Some of them are about investing, some are about protecting myself, some are about family, health, and the kind of life I want to build in the next decade. I have a few bullet points in front of me, but for the most part, I want this to feel like an honest conversation. Because when you get closer to a major age milestone, money starts to feel less like a scoreboard and more like a tool for freedom, security, responsibility, and direction. The first milestone is simple, but it is one of the most important ones for me. I want to keep maxing out my Roth IRA. About 5 years ago, my Roth IRA was worth around $29,800. At that time, I made a video showing what was inside the account, and I had four ETFs in it. I owned BNDW, which is Vanguard's Total World Bond ETF. I owned VEU, which gave me exposure to international stocks. And then I owned VOO and VTI, which were my two U.S. stock ETFs. VOO is Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF, and VTI is Vanguard's Total Stock Market ETF. So technically, VTI already includes many of the same companies that are inside VOO. Looking back, what I was really trying to do was recreate a three-fund portfolio, even though I somehow ended up using four funds. The basic idea made sense. I wanted U.S. stocks, international stocks, and a little bit of bonds for diversification. It was responsible, it was diversified, it was the kind of portfolio that would probably work fine for a lot of people. But when I look back now, I also realize that it may have been a little too conservative for my age, my time horizon, and my risk tolerance. The reason I eventually changed my Roth IRA strategy is because I started to fully understand what makes this account so powerful. The biggest benefit of a Roth IRA is that your gains can grow tax-free. And because I do not plan to touch this money until at least age 59 and a half, I have a very long holding period. So instead of staying with a more conservative ETF mix inside the account, I decided I wanted to take on a little more risk. Not reckless risk, but more intentional risk. I wanted to own companies that I believed could still be strong long-term, while also having the potential to appreciate at a higher rate than some of the ETFs I was holding before. These days, I have been maxing out my Roth IRA every year since 2020, and the account is now worth right around $100,000. It moves around a lot, so depending on the market, it might be closer to $98,000 or $102,000. But right now, I only hold five individual stocks in it: Tesla, Microsoft, Robinhood, Nvidia, and Meta. Now, I should also mention that my income is currently above the direct Roth IRA contribution limit. In 2026, if you make over $168,000 as an individual or over $252,000 as a couple, you are not eligible to contribute directly to a Roth IRA. So what I have been doing instead is using the backdoor Roth IRA method, where you contribute to a traditional IRA and then convert it into a Roth IRA. And that is really the first milestone. Not trying to time the market, not trying to be perfect, but simply continuing to max out this account every year. But here's the bigger question. If you had an account that could grow tax-free for decades, would you play it completely safe, or would you allow yourself to take a little more calculated risk? The second money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is to continue avoiding lifestyle inflation. This is one of those financial goals that applies at almost every stage of life. But for me, it has become more important than ever. I am genuinely proud of the fact that my lifestyle has stayed pretty much the same since I started making content online. I have been tracking my expenses since 2014, so I can actually look at my own numbers and see the pattern clearly. Yes, I spend a little more now than I did back then, but that is mostly because life is more expensive. Food costs more. Housing costs more. Basic everyday things cost more. But it is not like I suddenly started buying designer clothes, luxury goods, the newest watch, or expensive things just because my income increased. One lesson from the millionaire next door has always stayed with me. The best accumulators of wealth are usually the people who keep their lifestyles modest while their income goes up. That idea really shaped how I think about money. For the past 6 or 7 years, my focus has been simple. Increase the gap between what I earn and what I spend. The bigger that gap becomes, the more money I can invest, the more freedom I can build, and the less pressure I feel to depend on every dollar that comes in. I have friends who make a lot of money, sometimes between $500,000 and $1 million a year, especially in fields like commercial real estate. But some of them spend almost everything they make, and personally, I am trying very hard not to live that way. At the same time, I will admit there is another side to this. Sometimes I wonder if not spending very much money is actually holding me back from enjoying life as much as I could. But right now, I still get a lot of satisfaction from investing into the S&P 500, building my portfolio, and thinking about bigger future decisions like possibly buying a house. The third money milestone I want to reach before I turn 40 is building my emergency fund up to 12 months of expenses. For a long time, I was comfortable keeping around 6 months of expenses saved, and honestly, I still think that is a very solid emergency fund. For most people, having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved is already a safe and responsible place to be. So I do not want this to sound like everyone needs to have 12 months sitting in cash. But for me personally, I want that extra cushion because it gives me more mental freedom. If my business disappeared tomorrow, or if my income suddenly dropped, having 12 months of expenses saved would give me time to breathe. I would not have to panic immediately. I would have a full year to figure things out, rebuild, or focus on something new. And as life gets more expensive, that kind of flexibility matters more. If I buy a house someday, have a family, or take on more financial responsibilities, I know my cash needs will probably be higher than they are right now. That is why I keep my emergency fund in a high-yield savings account. It is not meant to make me rich. It is not meant to beat the stock market. It is there for safety, liquidity, and peace of mind. At the time of recording, some high-yield savings accounts are paying around 3 to 3.5%, which at least helps the cash earn something while it waits. And if you are still building your own emergency fund, I would not start by obsessing over a huge number like $15,000 or $20,000. Psychologically, that can feel overwhelming. Start smaller. Aim for your first $1,000, then $2,000, then maybe $5,000. The number matters, but the habit matters more. The fourth money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is creating an estate plan. And this one became much more personal for me after my father passed away last year in May. I mentioned it briefly in a video before, but for the most part, I kept it private. My dad did have something of an estate plan, but it was not perfect. When I spoke with a trust attorney later on, he told me that the plan could have been much more complete and much more specific. There were certain details that were not clearly written out, like which types of property should go to which person. And sometimes the details that create problems are not even the big dramatic ones. They are the small things you do not think about until you are the person responsible for handling everything. One example was a wooden trailer at my dad's house. It was something you would attach to a truck to haul away debris or other items. I had almost forgotten about it. But then I learned that a trailer can actually have a title attached to it. So when it came time to clear the estate, I did not really know what to do with that. That might sound like a tiny detail, but it showed me how important it is to have clear instructions. If there had been a fully buttoned-up estate plan with specific directions for the executor, which in this case was me, the whole process would have been easier. Documents like a living will and a healthcare power of attorney can make your wishes clearer if you are ever unable to speak for yourself. Personally, I would rather work with a trust attorney and make sure everything is done correctly. Because the truth is, money planning is not only about building wealth while you are alive, it is also about making sure the people you leave behind are not forced to guess what you wanted. So here is something worth thinking about. If something happened to you tomorrow, would the people closest to you know exactly what to do? The fifth money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is adding at least one more income source. Right now, I have my YouTube and creator business, and I also receive some dividends from my portfolio. But after being in the personal finance space for a while, I understand how important it is to have a diversified mix of income. At the moment, close to 95% of my income comes from my creator business. That includes YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and maybe a little bit from Substack. And while I am grateful for that, I also know there is a risk in having so much income tied to platforms I do not control. If one of those platforms changes its algorithm, loses popularity, cuts monetization, or simply stops working the way it used to, that could create a real problem. The dividends from my investment portfolio are nice, but they are not enough to sustain my life indefinitely. I am not at the point yet where I can say I have reached financial independence through dividends alone. I also do not really sell courses or have major digital products. I have one paid template that costs around $15, but that is not a huge part of my revenue. So I have been thinking seriously about what the next income source could be. Maybe it is rental properties. Maybe it is buying a house and having a tenant live in part of it. Maybe it is starting another side business that fits my life better. Even an extra $500 or $1,000 per month would be meaningful. That money could be invested. It could cover some expenses. It could give me more breathing room. The sixth money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is taking care of my family. This one is a little more personal, and in some ways, it is self-explanatory, especially if you come from an immigrant background. For me, being of Chinese descent and growing up around Chinese culture, there is a strong expectation that children help take care of their parents as they get older. This idea is often connected to filial piety. It is a Confucian value where children honor and support their elders. That can mean living with or near aging parents, providing financial help, honoring parents who have passed away, or even choosing your career or where you live based on staying close to family. When I think about my own life, I realize I have already made some decisions around this. I have deliberately chosen to stay in the Bay Area because this is where my family is. In the past, I was drawn to places like Los Angeles, Austin, and New York. I could have imagined myself living in any of those cities, but ultimately I stayed here because my family's here. My friends are also here, and they are a huge part of my life. I went to high school in this area, and many of my close friends are still from that chapter of my life. As I get closer to my 40s, I also want to make sure I am taking care of my mom, who is now in her late 70s. That could mean buying a condo for her to live in someday, or maybe giving her money every month to make life easier. My parents took care of me for a very long time. I lived at home with them for many years before I moved out, so I do feel a responsibility to help them as much as I can. And to me, that is also a money milestone. Not because it is about getting richer, but because money should eventually help you protect the people who protected you first. The seventh money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is maybe buying a house. And I say maybe because I have honestly gone back and forth on this decision a lot. Especially in the Bay Area, owning a home is not always the obvious financial choice. In many cases, renting is much cheaper than buying. If we were only looking at the math, there is a strong argument that you could come out ahead by renting and investing the difference. That means investing the money you would have used for a down payment and also investing the monthly savings between your rent and what your mortgage payment would have been. That is especially true when mortgage rates are around 6.5% in America. If rates were closer to 2.5 or 3%, then the financial trade-off would be much closer. But at today's rates, buying in an expensive area can be hard to justify purely from an investment perspective. So for me, the reason I might want to own a house is not only financial, it is mostly psychological. I think it would be meaningful to have a home where my mom could live as she gets older, especially because she currently rents her own apartment. That connects back to the idea of taking care of family. There is also something emotionally different about owning a place. You can customize it. You can make it feel like yours. And if you have a fixed mortgage, you can at least expect your monthly payment to stay more predictable over time. I also think I could get real use out of the home. My mom could live there, and maybe later, if I have my own family, I could move into it too. But I am still not 100% sure. I am just saying that right now, this is the direction I am leaning toward. And this is where I would love to hear your thoughts. Would you rather rent and invest the difference, or own a home even if the numbers are not perfect, because the emotional value matters too? The eighth money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is continuing to invest in my health. Now, this might not sound like a direct money milestone at first, but I do think health and money are deeply connected. If I am healthier, I can probably live longer, work better, think more clearly, and possibly make more money over time. So even though this is not the same as maxing out an investment account or building an emergency fund, I still see it as part of my financial life. And to be honest, I have not been the best about this. I have not gone to a doctor for my annual physical in a couple of years, and as I get older, I think that is something I really need to fix. It is easy to ignore your health when you are busy, when work feels urgent, or when nothing seems seriously wrong yet. But I can feel my body changing. My metabolism is slowing down. My body hurts more than it used to. Sometimes I wake up and my back hurts for no dramatic reason at all. And that is one of those quiet reminders that I am not in my early 20s anymore. So over the next couple of years, I want to be more serious about the basics. I want to have a more balanced diet. I want to keep up with regular exercise. I want to actually go to my doctor and dental appointments instead of pushing them off. Because sometimes being responsible with money is not just about investing in the market. It is also about investing in the body that has to carry you through the rest of your life. And if you have been procrastinating on going to the doctor, seeing the dentist, or getting something checked out, maybe take this as a sign to stop delaying it. The ninth and final money milestone I want to accomplish before I turn 40 is having a clearer vision for what I want my 40s to look like. Because I do not want to wake up at 40 with a solid net worth, a decent portfolio, and a good financial foundation, but no real clarity about what I am actually trying to do with it. Money is useful, but only if it is connected to a life you actually want to live. So I want to be able to answer some basic questions. Do I still want to live in the Bay Area? How do I want to spend my time? Do I still enjoy the work I am doing? Do I want my life in 7 years to look similar to the life I have today? Or do I want it to be completely different? I even think about something as simple as today being a Thursday. If I looked at a random Thursday 7 years from now, would I be happy if it looked almost exactly like today? Or would that be a sign that I never made the changes I secretly knew I needed to make? The plan does not have to be perfect. It does not need to be some grand, dramatic vision where every detail is already figured out. But I do think I need some kind of North Star for the next 10 to 15 years of my life. That North Star would help guide how I use money, how I make money, where I put my energy, and what I say yes or no to. Because without a direction, even a strong financial position can feel strangely empty. I still really enjoy making these videos, and I know some of you have been watching for 6 or 7 years now. If you have been here that long, I truly appreciate it. And if you are new to the channel, I appreciate you being here too. These are the money milestones I personally want to accomplish before I turn 40. Some of them might apply to you, and some of them might not. I know a few of these goals are very specific to my own life, my family, my career, and where I am financially right now. But hopefully, this gives you something to think about as you build your own list. Maybe your next milestone is maxing out a retirement account. Maybe it is building an emergency fund. Maybe it is taking care of family, improving your health, adding another income source, or simply getting clearer on what kind of life you want your money to support. Let me know in the comments which one of these milestones resonated with you the most, and I will probably make a more general version of this video in the future so more people can think through the financial milestones they may want to reach before 40. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.